This is Jordan Butler, host of Head Over Heels. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Daniel Poppy, host of How to Write Good here on Public House Media. I just want to thank you for listening to the following broadcast brought to you by Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope that you'll come check out my show, How to Write Good, the writing show that is not about writing. A new show of How to Write Good comes out every Wednesday, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of How to Write Good. Again, thanks for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Beauties and Headcanons, where we're nerdy and you probably are too. This is Emily, and this week I have Sam Kirby of Cinema Stories here with me from Public House Media, and we're here to talk nerdy to you. I have called in a specialist this week to help me discuss the most recent nerdy movie that's been released, and that is Thor Ragnarok. So thanks so much, Sam, for being here with us today. How about you just give us a little brief rundown about your show, Cinema Stories, real quick?
Hi, Emily. So basically on Cinema Stories, we talk the latest in TV news and reviews. We talk about old movies, new movies, and just like the experiences we have with it. And yeah, we just keep everyone updated on what's happening in the entertainment industry.
Very cool. That's awesome. And how long have you been with Public House Media now?
I've been with Public House Media for about a month now. I have about 4 episodes, and the fourth one comes out this coming Tuesday, actually. We're on every Tuesday.
Oh, fantastic. That's awesome. So every Tuesday, a new episode comes out. Do you cover any certain amount of things in particular, or, just whatever happens to be tickles your fancy, or how do you figure that out?
Well, we usually talk about the movie of the week, maybe if a TV show is trending or an older movie is in the news. For example, last week we talked about Stranger Things and Thor Ragnarok. So, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so your most recent episode from this past week was on Thor and then Stranger Things, you say?
Yes, it was.
Very cool. So you've got your own little take on Thor, but we're going to pick your brain a little bit further as far as the nerdiness factor goes, I guess.
Awesome. I'm very excited.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, let's, I guess, start off with talking about the just movie as a whole in general. Personally, I thought it was really enjoyable. And just right off the get-go, I was sitting there in the theater with my husband, and he's like, did we go to the right movie? It was great. I kind of anticipated it, but I didn't expect it to be as goofy but good as it was. Yeah. It was really well done in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I really enjoyed the film also. One of the main pulls for me going into the movie was that Taika Waititi was directing, and he's a big comedy director. The last film that he had was called What We Do in the Shadows. And honestly, it's one of the funniest movies I've seen in a while. It's very original. It's like a mockumentary about vampires. And when you hear that, it doesn't sound like too original or funny, but he does a great job with it. And I was really excited to hear that, and I really loved the comedy in the movie.
Cool. Yeah. No, that what was that mockumentary called again?
What We Do in the Shadows. I believe it was released in 2014.
Okay, interesting. See, that I did not know that he was a known comedy director. So that's really cool, though. I felt it kind of the Thor vibe was a little bit like Guardians of the Galaxy 2-ish to me.
Yes, yeah.
In a good way, because they have like the 80s feel to it, and so did Thor. I was like, oh, interesting take.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Yeah.
I really, the thing with the other two Thor movies that I really enjoyed was it kind of felt kind of like the Lord of the Rings of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
It was very, very epic in scope and with the fantasy elements. Not so much here, like you said, taking a lot of the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of vibe with the music and the comedic tone. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. And yeah, so kind of moving then into how it does relate to other Thor movies. You mentioned that they felt you were like, it was like the Lord of the Rings of the Marvel universe. I get what you're saying there. It's kind of like the proper archaic in a way, sort of feeling, like in a good way though, not like an archaic like we'll never ever change, but like it's this older society that has been functioning a certain way, and they've always been very serious. And I thought the Thor movies were, on that more serious side too. But I liked what they did, and by making a little bit of a change of tone, but also still having a really good story too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I really like what they did here, bringing in different characters from different movies, and the new characters they introduced as well. When I saw this movie, I went with my girlfriend, and she's really into the other Thor movies because of their grand scale and their fantasy elements. Yeah. So she was a bit disappointed, and I see where a lot of people could get disappointed. Yeah. Where it is a much different tone from the other Thor movies, and I think that it had pros and cons, but overall really enjoyed it. And I thought that it's really stood out between the other Thor movies.
Yeah, it did. And I think since it was just a well done version of this style, I think that was really what made the big difference, is that it was really well done.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that a lot of people who detract from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they think that they're kind of cookie cutter, I guess, and they don't really give the directors a voice. But this is by far a Taika Waititi comedy first and foremost, and you can either take it or leave it.
Yep. No, exactly. Yep. And it's still, even though it does have that feeling, it still fits with the Marvel universe because it has a lot of Marvel characters in it. Like they brought in the Hulk, which I was super excited about. And who else was in there too? Well, of course, Loki was there.
Yes, fan favorite.
No, it was just really good, and I was totally surprised to see Doctor Strange. I was like, "What?
Oh yeah!
Oh my goodness!"
he was great in it. He was terrific.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I have to make a little sidebar on that little side event where they went to visit Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Like the way he kidnapped Loki and then left a little note. I'm like, that's Sherlock. It's totally what Sherlock would do.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And it's hilarious because Benedict Cumberbatch is Sherlock through and through. I feel like that is just his character that he plays. And I know he's a very talented actor in general, but I feel like he's just most comfortable playing that type of character.
Yeah, for sure. Cumberbatch, he's always great. He's really great in that role. He seems like he's the guy who knows the most in the room. And I really like Cumberbatch and what he did in this movie. He's in it for just a little bit, but he steals the scene where he's in.
He totally does. Yeah, and it's great. It's so good. But it's just it's because Loki disappeared, and then all that was left was this tiny little piece of paper with an address on it, and we're like, what just happened? Yeah. And then you see him standing there, and I'm like, that's exactly what would happen on an episode of Sherlock. It really is.
Yeah, and that was one of my favorite jokes in the movie when Loki is released by Doctor Strange, and he says, "I've been falling for 30 minutes." I laughed so hard.
That was so good. Oh yeah, that was great. I loved it. And then, I also loved when Thor and Loki I think they were in an elevator together, and they were trying to decide what to do once they got out.
Yes,
so that they could make a diversion or whatever. And they're like, and Loki's like, please don't do call help. Please don't do call help. We're doing call help. It's settled. What? Or get help. It was get help, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I hate get help. Somebody get help. If you haven't seen it, I apologize. You need to you will understand if you've seen it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Thor and Loki's relationship was so great in this movie, just with drama and comedy, just great. It's great.
Okay, but then let's also talk about the how Thor Ragnarok then relates to the rest of the cinematic universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because obviously there are other Marvel characters in the movie that are not part of the Thor universe, where not part of Asgard and all of the 9 realms and yada yada. Yeah. So we've got the Hulk that's in there. There were also some echoes of other Marvel characters, and I don't know if I'm personally not a huge knowledge source of the actual comics themselves, but there were some echoes of some of the comic book characters, which is pretty cool. Apparently, one of there was like those busts on the sides of the Grandmaster's big tower. And apparently one of them is a Marvel character from the comic books, kind of giving homage to the fact that he was one of the only other superheroes, I guess, to be able to lift Thor's hammer, who he had like basically become as worthy as Thor was. And so there's that in there. There was also the Rock guy, which was great. I loved the Rock guy. Yeah. I loved how like peaceful he spoke. It was just so like opposite, you know?
And what a lot of people don't know about that character is that that's actually voiced by Taika Waititi, the director.
Yeah, I did hear that. And when I first heard that, I'm like, no way, that's great. Oh, that's fantastic. That is so good. And I just, he's not only did he like actually play a role in the movie itself, but he was kind of a break from the, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it was good. It wasn't quite comedic relief, but it kind of was.
Yeah. Very, very funny character. Yeah. I really like the use of the Grandmaster played by Jeff Goldblum. I loved him in this movie. I'm a huge Jeff Goldblum fan. I think he's hilarious. And this role he really worked with. I thought he was scene stealer in every scene.
Yeah. Oh, totally was. He totally was. I heard a reviewer of the movie say it was Jeff Goldblum playing Jeff Goldblum. I'm like, yeah, you could be pretty accurate there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
He's just doing his thing, and that's awesome. Mm-hmm. I think he's just really good at being that awkward, eccentric guy, you know, like they're really out there personality.
Oh yeah, for sure. He was in that in Jurassic Park and Independence Day. He's been doing that for years.
Nice. Yep. Yeah, I've seen him in other things too. For some reason, I can't put my finger on what I've seen him in. But yeah, definitely did a really great job. Another character that is another part of the Marvel universe, but hasn't appeared in any movies before, is Topaz, the kind of like right-hand woman of the Grandmaster. She was kind of a stolen role from a different aspect of the Marvel universe, and was kind of thrown in as a like, hey, we also know Topaz. So she wasn't Valkyrie, the one that was from Asgard. She was the other one. Yeah, the older woman that was basically doing everything for the Grandmaster. And so she was in there kind of as a nod to some of the other characters around in the Marvel universe. So that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, for sure. I really like the kind of competition feel we got between her and Valkyrie. I thought that was great too. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was funny. And I really enjoyed the big surprise reveal of how Thor figured out that Valkyrie was who she was.
Yeah.
And I realized that's not probably her name, but she was a Valkyrie, and so they're just calling her that.
Yeah.
But, like she doesn't have any other name, and there's no other Valkyrie left, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, coming out of the theater, I think I didn't give the characters and their like arcs as much a credit as I wanted to, but now thinking back on it, I thought it was more subtle, and I really liked what they did with that character.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I think it's really important that Valkyrie was a part of it too, because she also in the Marvel comics apparently was a team player with the Hulk in some of the comics. Yeah, so it's kind of cool that the Hulk and Thor and Valkyrie were all together fighting for a common cause. That's a pretty cool aspect. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they all had their different angles on like their motivations.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, really that's a cool thing too. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Scourge. Oh man.
Scourge. Yeah.
Okay, so our introduction to him as the like fill-in gatekeeper guy. I don't know how this guy is gonna pan out here. Cool. And then he gets like, I don't know how to say it, like swept away by Hela.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, you need a job? You can be my special executioner dude. Yeah, well, that's one good, but he didn't seem like he really wanted to do that ever.
No, it really didn't. I really like the way Carl Urban, that's the actor.
Yeah.
I really like the way he played him. He actually plays a Dr. McCoy in the Star Trek movies. So that's
why he's familiar. I've been trying to figure it out, and I knew I should have looked it up, but you helped me out there. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
I kept coming up with what's his name? I'll think of it in a minute. But I kept coming with the guy that looks like him, but not exactly. And I knew he was very familiar. But yeah, so he played Dr. McCoy in the new Star Trek movies. Exactly. Yes, that's the guy I was trying to think of. Thank you for fixing my brain on that. Yeah, so I love the crossover nerdy characters, though, too, because they've got actors that play a bunch of different things in other nerdy movies, which is super fun. And I also I loved that about the second Thor movie, Dark World, because I don't know if many people knew this, but the actor for the lead Dark Elf was actually Christopher Eccleston. He was the Ninth Doctor from Doctor Who.
Oh, really?
Which is, yeah. And I didn't know that. I recently just watched it for the first time. And so I was like, who this guy? Like, who is it? And so I was figuring everything out and didn't even think to look up who that actor was and discovered that it was Christopher Eccleston. And I'm like, no way, really? So, so that was really cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if you noticed this. Not a lot of people might pick up on this, but they snuck in a Matt Damon cameo in this.
I did. Oh, I totally did, and that was great. Oh, I loved it. That was so good.
Yeah, at first I didn't know. I kind of thought it would be him, and I was like, no, that's not him. And then I looked it up later. I'm like, that's Matt Damon.
Yeah,
that was so funny. Yeah, very funny.
No, that was great. Oh, I loved that cameo. And so then I was trying to see if the other guy was somebody else too, and I couldn't figure it out because he had the beard. So
yeah. I believe
that. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's Sam Neill. He is also in Jurassic Park. So a lot of
really?
Yeah, a lot of tying together of
yeah.
Love it.
That's great. It's fantastic. That's one of the reasons why I love the nerd realm so much, is because there's so much crossover and it's like its own community, really. And everybody just kind of helps each other out and has inside jokes. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it really is.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I feel like we need to also address then any possible future implications because of what happened in this movie. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously there's the storyline of Thor and his storyline there with Loki and Hela and everything. But then there's also a couple of Easter egg blurbs that were in as well. So we can talk about that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So let's first just say, like, okay, I feel like the Hela storyline wrapped up pretty clearly. Do we anticipate another Thor movie, or is this going to be the end of them?
My guess is that after the next Avengers movie, Infinity War, we're going to get an entirely new, shifted Marvel Cinematic Universe. Perhaps maybe we'll get another Thor with Hemsworth, but I would say it's not very good chances, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. I mean, I guess seeing how many times they redid Spider-Man, it probably would not be very likely to see Hemsworth again as Thor. Just seeing what he does a fantastic job as Thor, but
he really does. He really does. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe another movie, but maybe a different actor. Not 100% likely though.
Yeah, not 100% likely. No.
Okay.
No, I don't think so.
All right. But Infinity War is going to be epic. And I also definitely think that the one Easter egg that was in like the middle of the credits, that was like the teaser Easter egg. I definitely think that has some implications on what's going to be coming up. For
sure. Yeah. I believe that's the ship that they show is Thanos' ship.
I would totally agree.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And my little theory is during the climax of the movie, Loki looks to the Tesseract in Odin's vault, which is actually an Infinity Stone. So my guess is that Loki either called Thanos and was like, "Hey, I've got an Infinity Stone," or he just tracked him down. And I think that's really good with Loki's character and like the way he's been, and it's kind of tying the whole thing together. So I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it would be totally like Loki if he just like pocketed the Tesseract and nobody knew about it, because that's just how he is. He just he's that kind of like slimy, slippery little guy. You know?
He's the god of mischief.
Exactly. So that would perfectly fit him. But yeah, I don't know if he would actually call Thanos, or if Thanos would just be like, "Hey, it's moving. I can actually like track it now." Yeah, because I feel like he's actually hunting the Infinity Stones, right? Thanos is. So if he's hunting them, he has some way to figure out where they are. And I feel like the Tesseract specifically has some kind of beacon or something like that, where you can actually figure out where it is. Something like that. Yeah.
I feel like he has his tabs on all of them.
Right. Yeah. Totally. And if it were in Asgard, it would be a lot harder for him to find than if it were in the human realm.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
So I think Loki somehow moved it. Yeah. All right. And then, we have not talked about this yet, though. But there's some kind of significant things going on with the Hulk in this movie.
Oh, definitely, for sure.
Apparently, he was the Hulk for 2 whole years, and Bruce Banner was just non-existent in the back of the Hulk's brain.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that. Yeah, I was very surprised by that. Yeah.
I was like, what? Not even once did he... What? And so when Bruce Banner actually like came back out, he started freaking out because he's like, "Oh my goodness, I was Thor for 2 whole years. What the heck happened?" Yeah,
and it makes sense that the Hulk would like develop speech patterns if he's Hulk for 2 straight years.
Exactly, because then if he's the Hulk for maybe a half hour at a time, then the Hulk himself doesn't have very much development. But if he's got 2 full years behind him, that totally makes sense. So. Yeah, and then Bruce was trying to figure out like, okay, if I become the Hulk again after this, I might never become Bruce again. Yeah,
that was really I don't know how that's going to go now, because he does Hulk out again.
He does. And so I'm kind of concerned that Bruce Banner might not come back at all.
Oh, that's my concern too, because one of the funniest jokes in the movie is when they're flying the ship and Bruce says to Valkyrie, "I'll show you who I am," and then he jumps and certain events transpire, and I'm wondering, is Banner gone, or was just
right?
It was funny. It was funny for sure.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Because he jumps out and I think he was expecting to turn into the Hulk, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Like, never mind. But then he did become the Hulk, and she was like, "Oh, so I've known you for a little while."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the big pulls with the movie is that like all these like characters have these relationships that you wouldn't expect. And they just play really well off of each other. Oh,
totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's so weird because you don't think of certain characters like either knowing each other or having any connection. And then they're like, "Hey, I actually do." Like everyone finding out that, Thor and Loki had an older sister.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, "What?" So yeah, lots of connections and that sort of thing. So that's a lot of fun. But yeah. Any final thoughts on it?
Not really. Like I said, I'd recommend the movie as a comedy more than a per se Marvel movie, I guess. Yeah, it was really great comedy. I thought all the actors did super well, very funny. I thought Cate Blanchett was intimidating in the movie.
Oh yeah.
If you're a huge fan of like the tone from the other Thor movies, maybe you'll be a little disappointed. But overall, I had a really good time with this movie.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I had a really good time as well. Even though I did really enjoy the previous Thor movies, I still did enjoy this one. But like you said, I would recommend it more as a comedy than as a Thor movie.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, even though it does have a Thor plotline. Totally still is a Thor movie. It just doesn't have the same feel. So yeah, I would definitely agree there. Yeah. Alrighty, well, thanks for getting nerdy with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts about Thor Ragnarok on our Facebook page, and that's at beauties-headcanons. And let us know any other topic suggestions you have as well. You could also look forward to next week. We are going to have a Marvel versus DC showdown, so that's really exciting. It's with more specifically the movies, but you'll get more details on that as next week progresses. But be sure to tune in for that. Also subscribe on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and iTunes. We'd also love a review and a rating so we can see how we're doing and work to improve so you guys get the best listening experience.
Yeah, a huge thanks to Public House Media for making the show possible. Check them out on Facebook and on Twitter at the PH Media, or their website, thephmedia.com, and stay up to date on this podcast and the network.